Welcome to 10-Minute Type Advice by Personality Hacker. I'm Joel Mark Witt.
And I'm Antonia Dodge.
This show features questions from the Personality Hacker community that we answer in about 10 minutes. We've been using personality types in our coaching for years, and we'd love to answer your questions about personal growth through the lens of type. You can find out more about us at personalityhacker.com. Okay, now let's hear today's question.
Hey guys, I've been struggling on and off for years to try and determine my best fit type, and I'm between an INFJ and an INTJ. Could you describe some more ways to help someone differentiate between these two types, especially if they have had a lot of influence from their family to be either more extroverted feeling or extroverted thinking? Can an INTJ look like they're going to an INFJ loop during an interpersonal conflict because they have an anxious attachment style, or is it more likely that they are an INFJ? Do INFJs dislike using extroverted feeling, or are you supposed to feel a certain sense of relief when you finally find your correct Copilot? Thanks, guys.
Thanks for the question.
There's a lot of these styles of questions, and I just want to say that I think when we add other systemic components in, then sometimes it actually makes things more confusing. Now, sometimes it clears things up. You know, I'm a person who I appreciate both Myers-Briggs and the Enneagram. And I think that sometimes those two systems can help highlight different aspects of our personalities in both of those systems. And sometimes it can clear up some, well, if I'm this type, why am I acting kind of like this type? And it's like, well, maybe you have an Enneagram preference that, you know, leans towards that thing, but you're still this type in the Myers-Briggs system. Sometimes that can be actually really helpful. But I think when we start layering on a bunch of other stuff like attachment styles and other personality, well, attachment styles isn't a personality trait, but it's, you know, like these other components, I think that it actually ends up muddying the waters as opposed to creating clarity. So the reason why I say that is because the difference between INTJs and INFJs, I understand and appreciate why they sometimes can be very complicated. They're both using the same dominant or driver cognitive function of introverted intuition, or what we call perspectives. And that function it's a rare function, right? It's not used that by a wide swath of the population. And descriptions about these two types can sometimes look real like merged together because of that very unique characteristic. Add to that the layer that the thinking and feeling preferences are what we call in the middle of the car, the middle of the stack, auxiliary, co-pilot, 10-year-old tertiary. And there's going to be a more balanced, conscious relationship with these two functions. And so sometimes it's hard to parse out, am I using, or do I have thinking preferences that I'm leaning heavily on my feeling side, or do I have feeling preferences and leaning heavily on my thinking side? And so it makes sense why these two types get confused for each other a lot, or at least people have to go through a real journey to discover their best fit type. One thing you did mention that I do believe is quite relevant is the influences of the people around us. What are they rewarding from us when we show up as these things? Like that is, I do believe, is a pretty big node in the system. If you are an INFJ, if you have INFJ preferences, but every time you used extroverted thinking or effectiveness, which is the co-pilot of INTJs, everybody just dumped praise and on you and said that's absolutely what you're supposed to be doing and keep doing that. Well, I mean, it's human to keep going down a path that we're getting a lot of approval and reward for. Alternatively, if one is an INTJ, but they get a ton of rewards or maybe reinforcement to use extroverted feeling or harmony, which is the co-pilot for INFJs, then of course, particularly as a woman, right, there's going to be a lot of insistence to use that or develop that function. And by develop, I just mean mimic it, do a lot of mimicry.
Yeah. I mean, Dr. Nardi talks a lot about this, that career choice after the age, I think, of 25 really starts to determine the flavor of how we show up in our behaviors, because our career choice shapes us. Like you said, Antonia, if somebody's getting a lot of reward for a certain function use, even if they don't have that function in their car model or cognitive function stack, they're still going to develop skill around those kinds of behaviors that'll get the rewards from people. And so we can start to see over time somebody's personality taking shape based on the reward structures in their life, and particularly, I can say that word, in their professional life.
Yeah. So then it comes down to the flavor of thinking and feeling a person is using. If you're trying to determine between these two types, you're going to want to really tap into what style of thinking suits you and what style of feeling suits you. Because even though an INTJ and an INFJ both have thinking and feeling relatively balanced inside of their function stack, it's going to show up completely differently. And even if, like as you just mentioned, Joel, our career choice encourages us to go towards different styles of thinking and feeling, we're still going to have definitive cognitive preferences. So I would tap into what those preferences are. In a very easy way, INFJs, they're going to be using extroverted feeling or harmony. And one of the things we say around here is for extroverted feeling or harmony, all emotions are actionable. Meaning that as soon as you get emotional information from another person, there is a sense that I'm now responsible to help meet a need or build morale or do something about that emotional information. And for introverted feeling or authenticity, which is what an INTJ would use, that's not necessarily the case, right? Emotions are just emotions and they happen to us. Now, it might encourage an INTJ to take a specific action. It might motivate them or sort of focus their intentions towards something, but it's not actionable in and of itself. And it certainly wouldn't be if somebody else gave them emotional information. Like your own emotions may be actionable, but other people's aren't necessarily actionable unless you feel beholden to them somehow. On the flip side, if we're going to look at the other, the two thinking styles, for extroverted thinking or effectiveness, for INTJ's Copilot, we say all digital information is actionable, meaning that for extroverted thinking or effectiveness, when you get a piece of information, now you have to do something about it because information isn't just information for its own sake. You gather information to take an action, to execute. Whereas introverted thinking, accuracy, which is what an INFJ would use, just like with introverted feeling, not all digital information is actionable. Introverted thinking learns to understand, and it gathers more and more information just to have it, right? Just to have it available in case it's going to need it sometime in the future. So your relationship to your thinking and feeling are going to be very different depending upon which of these two types you are. So what is the kind of information you tend to believe that you must take action on? And what's the kind of information that you just gather for yourself, right? And is something that you ruminate over to try to make decisions or to try to figure yourself out. I think the other piece of it is that even if a person is struggling with their auxiliary or Copilot function, like an INTJ might really struggle to make things happen and get things done, and they might have their own blocks against it, or an INFJ has some blocks against extroverted feeling or harmony. Maybe they struggle with relationships or connecting or being in vibes. Once you get in the groove of that, once you start to truly develop that function, it is a source of joy. It's a place of certainty. It's a place that you rest into and you can feel your best self coming out. Now, I've heard a lot of IFJs go, well, I don't like extroverted feeling or harmony because I don't want to just have to meet people's needs. But that's not really what that function is in totality. It's a part of that function. All of the other parts are feeling a sense of contribution and vibe and relationship with other people. It's also about sort of understanding a bigger picture culturally, and it's about building healthy boundaries and making it so people don't take advantage of you. Once an INFJ gets into that zone, they feel really good. It's like this really strong muscle that comes in for them, and they feel the improvement in all the relationships, and that feels good. For INTJs, extroverted thinking or effectiveness, once they start getting things done, they watch themselves being able to ameliorate things in the outside world, not just plan in their head. When they observe themselves executing and having an impact and leaving their thumbprint on the world, that's nothing but joy for that type. So yes, the answer is once you really start developing that auxiliary, you do feel a sense of rest into it, and you feel a sense of empowerment that comes along. And that would be, I think, a really big symbol of which of those functions is your preference.
Thank you for the question. You can ask your own question about personality types or personal growth. Visit personalityhacker.com/questions. We also have programs designed to help you with your personal growth through the lens of personality types. Again, visit personalityhacker.com and find the program that's made just for you. My name is Joel Mark Witt.
And I'm Antonia Dodge.
Thank you for listening to 10-Minute Type Advice by Personality Hacker. We'll talk with you on the next episode. If you're focused on personal growth, I think you'll resonate with our core content over at personalityhacker.com. We want to see you understand how your mind is wired so you can generate motivation, improve social skills, find career opportunities, and master excellent decision making. But a quick warning, we are advice and action focused in all of our articles, podcasts, and videos. This means that we attract people who like to be challenged to become excellent, to take action, to put in the work to optimize themselves, not simply just gather more information. If you are committed to personal growth and ready to radically find your inner truth, then come over and be a part of our growing community of like minds at Personality Hacker.